Hello, we're back, and in this second video lecture, we're going to be talking more about correlations between two variables in healthcare. So let's have a look. Okay, so the t-test for correlations allows us to test whether correlation is statistically significant from zero. An important concept here is that with very large samples, even a weak correlation can become statistically significant. So practical significance always matters with these. So this slide will walk us through the setting up for a hypothesis for a correlation test. In practice, correlation tests are often one-sided, depending on the direction of the relationship that we expect. So in this case, once again, we see the alpha level set at 0.05. We state what the null and alternative hypothesis is. And then we use the simple linear regression. We run through the test statistics, we compare it to the critical value, and now we're ready to, after we do all this math that I'm not going to require you to do, we look to see to predict one continuous variable using another. And some of you may be familiar with this. So the equation y plus bx describes that relationship where the slope will tell us how y changes when x changes. And again, here we have a very nice linear regression. So we have the line that shows a very strong relationship between the length of stay and the total charges. Where the least squares regression concept comes in, it finds that line that best fits the data by minimizing the vertical distances, or the residuals, as they say, between the observed values and the predicted values. And this line may not hit every data point exactly, but that's okay. But for the most part, you can see here are our data points. And then when doing the math that we've seen, we get this nice linear line. And if a couple of outliers are outside of the line, we're not going to, it's still a pretty strong correlation. So now we're doing the same thing, and we have a slope line of 4,443, right? And it's same type of thing. We're going to expect that the expected charge with the 0 day stay is 7,801. Now we're looking at regression hypothesis tests. This slide shows how for both these tests for both the intercept and the slope, excuse me, even if the intercept isn't that statistically significant, we need to keep it in the model. The key takeaway from this slide is that a significant slope will tell us that the independent variable provides useful information for predicting the outcome. Now we're looking at regression assumptions. Residuals must be independent, normally distributed, and have a mean of zero. These assumptions help ensure that our regression results are valid and reliable. So again, when we say the residuals must be independent, we're talking about the vertical, right? And again, independent, normally distributed, and a mean of zero. And again, that's all I have for you. The really important things for this chapter: understand what correlation is, understand what regression is, and that should help you understand how we look at two different variables in healthcare. That's all I have, and you will see you online. Bye now.